So today on Historically, we have a special guest. He is a rapper, socialist, and he's one of the few people who has been to the DPRK. So it's going to be exciting. So go ahead.
Hello, my name is Xiang Yu, and I am a communist rapper. My music career is based in Taiwan, where I lived for a few years. And you might have seen me on some podcasts like Pros of the Round Table before they disbanded, or I'm a regular. I appear regularly on Carl Zha's Silk and Steel podcast. And I believe Carl Zha's been on this podcast to speak
Yes.
about Xinjiang.
Yeah,
right?
we're like that. We love it. He's so good with so much history, no matter how
Trivia and
obscure it is.
And I actually recorded a series on Taiwan's the history of Taiwan's political development from like prehistoric times to like Ming Dynasty, Qing Dynasty, Japanese occupation, like Taiwan's return to China, and like the stuff going on today. So if you're interested, you can check that out. And oh yeah, Carl and I are also starting our Korean War series soon, so look out for that. And yeah, I just like to go online and share the little knowledge I have and learn from others. So I guess that's part of what we're doing today.
Okay, so I mean, this week I hate doing episodes on bad Twitch streamers, but sometimes it's necessary because, okay, so with Rachel Maddow, for example, when she says ridiculous things like, oh my God, can you believe that there's a train between North Korea and Russia? People don't understand.
She said that?
Yeah. You have not seen the, oh my God. Okay, we'll put that at the end. It's funny, okay? But people can at least be like, oh, she's an MSNBC bot, not trust her, right? But when you get somebody who you think is an independent streamer, like any one of them who say something like incubator babies or the, what is it? Let's support Hong Kong, go support the protesters in Belarus. That's a little bit more dangerous because many people think they've done their homework and their opinions actually more informed or something than Rachel Maddow, but it's not.
And if you haven't already, I highly recommend looking up what William Bloom wrote on the National Endowment for Democracy.
And we also have a few pieces on the National Endowment for Democracy. Before we begin, can you quickly tell people what Western chauvinism is?
I think in a way we can say that it's almost like, if we're talking about the Western chauvinism of the left, it's kind of like lesser evil imperialism. But Western chauvinism is kind of, you know how in the United States, it's a society built on white supremacy, right? Now, Western chauvinism, I think, if you want to sum it up, it's basically that, but on a global scale. So it's very Eurocentric. And when I say Eurocentric, I'm including like Western Europe and North America. And it's kind of the there's this sort of out of sight, out of mind attitude towards the global South and the victims of, past colonialism and current day, present day imperialism. And it's anything you might want to add to that? I'm kind of drawing a blank.
Yeah, often they assume that everything about their system translates over, including who the protesters are. And they're also, so there's no critical eye. One thing that really baffles me is that you've seen how the Western media smears Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn, and they're like this in the global change level, right? Imagine what they would say about somebody like Kim Il-sung, Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin, because they've actually appended capital and threw them out. But they cannot, but somehow they can still, they can understand that the media smears Bernie Sanders, but not translate that over to everyone, like from Maduro to Mao, that the media will do the same thing because they are fighting power. So
And
that's
then,
what. Mhm.
sorry, at the same time though, they'll if the Black Panthers were still alive today, they would, if they were still around today, they would be subject to the same imperialist smearing, and people like Vaush would be deriding them as so-called tankies. But they don't seem to understand that there are incentives to smear past successes, like people like experience when we past experiences for socialist construction, and when we bring those up, we're not saying, oh, everything is perfect and that it's something that we want to emulate, because a lot of the things that didn't go so smoothly was kind of, it's what Michael Perenni would call siege socialism. They're under siege ever since day one. The imperialists just wanted to strangle um an attempt to build socialism in the cradle. So of course there's a certain level of paranoia. There wouldn't be, there wouldn't be an NKVD if it weren't for
Hitler.
yeah, or not
um.
even before Hitler, even in when the Civil War began,
Oh yeah,
like 15, like what
that
was it,
was
like
the
15
Cheka.
countries?
15 countries simultaneously invaded them.
Yeah.
But another thing is that I keep saying is look at what happened after 9/11 when 3,000 people were killed. Now, Nazis killed 27 million people in the USSR. How many people did the Korean War kill?
Millions.
And what kind of course, look at just for 3,000 people, we had like a 20-year global war. People were getting searched at the airports. There's a Muslim ban. There's so much. And imagine how what'll happen to a country when you have like 20 million or 5 million or like 1/3 of the population as it with Korea just go.
And and during the Korean War, every major city north of the 38th parallel was bombed, and even the South wasn't safe from bombing, because when they were liberated by the Korean People's Army, then they would become targets as well. And if you firebomb a city, it takes like what, like less than an hour for the whole city to burn down.
Oh yeah. So of course, but okay. First of all, so in some sense, they are right in the alleged authoritarianism. But look at your own country. Only 3,000 deaths, and you guys are on a 20-year war. And North Korea has not bombed a single person since the Korean War, basically.
Well, they didn't have an air force to bomb anyone with even during the Korean War.
Yeah, I mean, that's a miracle. But okay, then there's the second level of like white, like I shall not name this person, but he's a journalist I respect, and he asked me like, do you trust the Iranian state media? And I'm like, well, I mean, the press TV has not lied to me that at all, and CNN has. So I have no idea why you would not trust them over CNN. So there's this white is right, but then when you look at it structurally, with Kim Il Sung, he was a guerrilla warrior in the mountains for 30 years. And a lot of the South Korean leaders, they were Japanese collaborators. Like, who has an incentive to lie to you more? Some guy who spent the mountains as a guerrilla warrior with nothing in his pockets, or somebody who got rich off of committing atrocities.
And I want to just, since we're on the topic, and since I guess we're going to talk a little bit about the DPRK today, I wanted to point something out. And I was mistaken when I said the KPA didn't have an air force. They did, but they didn't fly to other countries and bomb them, was what I meant. But you can't look at the Korean War as something that just started in 1950. It's a continuation of the the National Liberation Movement that began when it was still a Japanese colony. And the source and the forces at play were the National Liberation Forces and the Comprador forces. Compradors being like the collaborators with the imperialists. Now, with the Japanese defeated, that void was filled by a new imperialist superpower, that being the U.S. And what happened was they just propped up the old collaborators and put them into power.
Well, I have a tweet, but I'll find it later. On August 30th, I believe it's August 13th, 1945, the Korean people had already organized these local councils, and they had already called a constitutional convention, and they had picked Kim Il Sung as a leader. A month later, the U.S. came and dissolved that in their end, banned all the communists, and basically reinstalled Japanese collaborators in power. I was looking through the US secret documents, and they were telling us that the Syngman Rhee was very right wing, and he was very unpopular. But the only thing that he did have is that because he was in the US, he did not have the stain of the Japanese collaborator on his hand, but all the collaborators supported him. And yeah, so between the two Koreas, there's only one Korea that has a legitimate
we don't say two Koreas.
We have one Korea.
Yeah, it's the two sides of Korea. It was
the two sides of Korea, exactly. The People's Republic. But now that we've gotten the basic idea of Western chauvinism, which is so ingrained into Western people out, shall we begin this video with that you wanted to share?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so how do I do this? Can you see this?
Yeah.
Where are we though? I can't see us.
We're on the top.
You see us?
Not in the screen share, but yeah, I see us. I think if you're recording the Zoom call, it'll be in there as like two separate frames.
Okay, excellent.
And if not, we can just put the video in post.
Well, I mean, there's no okay. Excellent. Okay, let's start over. This.
All right, what's this? I've been called out by Tanky Twitter. Let's see. Somebody link this. Love me the drama. Definitely not Zhang Yu. Red rapper, Bolshevik beat maker. I like to debunk imperialist lies. Okay, I'm sure this guy is a super reliable resource on leftist theory.
Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Yes, he is, because he has not been brainwashed by the US hegemony like you. Americans, the biggest problem with Americans is they don't realize how brainwashed they are.
Well, I've been there before, but I questioned it after, after seeing certain things, recognizing certain patterns, like, how come the US is always propping up dictatorships while accusing other countries of having insufficient democracies?
Yeah. Why isn't there a what is it, National Endowment for Democracy inside of Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, it's like, how do you overthrow Libya and accuse Gaddafi of just all of these terrible things, and then end up with a hell on earth complete with a slave market?
Exactly. So, and then let's not even start with every single lie that they've told to get into war. But yes, Vaush, he will know more because he understands the way in which the media lens distorts the truth that you do not.
Just listen to how condescendingly Vaush talks down to your boy Hakeem in Iraqi about U.S. imperialism in Iraq. Please retweet this so more people know what a fraud and racist Vaush really is. Just drop the facade and join the alt-right already. It can mean the Black Panther. Material conditions doesn't just mean servant of capital. Material conditions can mean Stonewater. It can mean the Black Panther.
Okay, so I bet you he means Stonewall. But why does he get material conditions wrong?
Because he learns leftist theory probably from memes and other streamers, and not by actually reading history and theory. And I mean, in the original video where he tries to because he was trying to make the point that Lenin would have told people to vote for Biden.
No, that's not. Well, oh God. Okay, no. Oh God.
So then he went through all of these. He said he was like, I really wanted to play video games last night, but because of this video, I decided to read theory. And what he had probably actually done was look up a bunch of quotes and then just completely interpret them out of context. But then he claimed that he read the whole thing, And
No,
then
wait.
Hakim made a video kind of just exposing him for not having done what he claimed he did.
And Lenin wrote like 4,000. Lenin's collected work is like 4,000, like over 10,000 pages, maybe 100,000. I don't know. It's huge. So there's no way anyone could have read all of Lenin. You know what I mean?
So I mean, Lenin did say that communists should participate in electoral politics or parliamentary politics to prove to the I guess the vanguard sees things, but the masses might not recognize certain patterns, and it's just to show them how it's futile and that there's a limit to reformism. Now, what Lenin said though was that communists should join, in the proletarian party and maintain their independence, not join the Democratic Party and try to reform it from within and I don't know, push Biden to the left.
Absolutely not. I mean, there is one small, tiny exception, and that has to do with Georgy Dimitrov. And he speaks about it inside of fascist countries. So inside of fascist countries, the Communist Party has been cracked down. You can't form it because it's illegal. Never mind. And so there is, and so Georgy Dimitrov writes a manifesto to communists who live inside the fascist country on how to at least try to organize a working class coalition. And with that one exception, he doesn't say you join with the Democratic Party, but he says all the non-fascists form a popular front. But that's inside of a fascist country where you've been cracked down upon, where the government's fascist, and you're trying your best to resist. Like, that's the only one.
And that's called a united front.
Yes. That's a united or popular front.
Yeah, it's not what Vaush thinks. It's not just being a tailist.
No. It's an actively where you go and court everyone and says, hey, that guy's a psycho-fascist. I know that we have our differences, but we're not fascist. So let's just defeat that guy, make him illegal once we get in, and then we can split apart and have our parties run other elections or whatever it was. But okay, so let's go on to the next part.
Yeah, sure.
Stonewater? I meant Stonewall. Fuck, I was so tired last night. Panther Party, which by the way, also fought for racial equality, not just socialism. Material conditions can mean Wait, they're like fact-checking me with text. If you were consistent, you'd be deriding the Panthers for being tankies instead of tokenizing them for your bullshit argument. How the fuck?
Absolutely, that's what he's doing. Because they're dead.
And I mean, I don't think there needs to be much explanation here. He says that he's not tokenizing them, but I mean...
Well, he calls me a tanky, and he calls you a tanky. Well, I don't know if he knows I exist, but he definitely calls you a tanky. And and then he mocks tankies, and it's like, yeah, I'm really sure he would have called Black Panthers tankies and stupid people, or the N-word even.
Here's the tactical N-word. Anyways, the thing about the word tankies is it originates from the Hungarian counter-revolution.
I actually went through this last week on my Twitch stream on this exact thing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I showed them exactly who the Hungarian counter-revolutionaries were and what their demands were, including like too many Jews in high places. So basically, if you weren't a tanky, you were supporting a fascist there. So we actually went through details about what a tanky is and the Hungarian Revolution, 1956 Hungarian, whatever you want to call it.
Like anyone who uses the word tanky, like unironically, it's just left McCarthyism. It's kind of like how people in the last century just went around calling people commies.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Okay, and it's like a stupid old Trotskyite term, and I have no idea how it got revived. But now even liberals use it. Anyways,
you wanted to show people the picture of the Black Panther newspaper, right?
I already did.
You didn't explain it this time, yeah.
Okay, so yeah. So can people see the picture of the Black Panther newspaper? I just want to see. Okay. Yes. So you see this newspaper. This was because many of the Black Panthers went to DPRK, Vietnam, and China, I believe. And here's their newspaper, Black Panther Community News Service, and it has Kim Il Sung, Ho Chi Minh, and Mao Zedong participating in it. And so, yeah, they were tankies. They would be totally called tankies. And yeah.
They were against U.S. imperialism, and they were for. They looked to these societies for inspiration. They weren't just blindly copying them, but they respected them because they had one thing in common, which was they were all against U.S. empire. But just one of them was fighting it. Just the Panthers were fighting it from within because they're the Black nation is in America is an internal colony.
Exactly. You can call it an internal colony because a colony is where you just go and extract resources, and that's what they've been doing. Extract not just resources, but labor or whatever. And yeah, it's a colony in a nation. Yeah. So, are you ready to go to the next part?
Yeah.
Please retweet this so more people know what a fraud and racist Vaush really is.
We
Just
went through
drop
this
the
part
facade
already.
And join the alt-right already. It can mean the Black Panther. It can mean Stonewater. They also fought for racial equality, not just socialism. Material conditions can mean wait, they're like fact-checking me with how am I tokenizing the Black Panther Party by saying they fought for racial equality? What the fuck?
Because you are not taking it.
That is a very
Sorry, you are doing it because you're not actually taking them as they are. You are turning them into a caricature of what you want them to be, which is like non-revolutionaries or people who don't have solidarity with the third world. And so, yes, because if you criticize us, all of us, for being tankies, and then you praise them, that's tokenization, my friend.
Very strange accusation. Not just socialism. Material conditions can mean fucking. The Panthers fought for racial equality by pursuing national liberation with a Marxist-Leninist analysis, such a. Okay, yeah. So they're just whining about lesbians marching outside of the Washington.
Whining about what?
Okay,
you didn't even finish his thought.
And you are lucky that I personally got Biden into office because otherwise, is Hakeem from Iraq? Well, hey, listen, okay. We're going to get Biden to get those troops out of Iraq, okay? Wait, did he already do that? We're going to keep Biden from fucking bombing any more of your airports, okay? That's what we're going to do. You're welcome, Hakeem. True.
I mean, they say that he's joking about this, but you don't joke about these things. And imagine if, let's say, my father were a slave owner and I was a son of a slave owner and I went up to like one of the slaves he owned and said, you should be thanking me for telling my dad to whip you less, you know? Things could be much worse, but we're making it better. I mean, that's it. I don't know how else to describe it. That's exactly what it's. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, it came off as worse for me because it came off as almost like, complete war crimes denial. Guess what? Obama bombed so many people in Syria that they ran out of bombs. That was when Biden's the vice president. So to think that Biden is going to magically make the bombs disappear, that's I don't even know. It's like a wishful thinking or complete blindness. But yeah, no, the U.S. foreign policy has not changed and will not change because we all know who controls it, which is the military-industrial complex. So it is chauvinistic, condescending, and just vile. I mean, it's like, once you let's say that you destroy a city and you're like, you should be thanking me for making sure that there were not cluster bombs.
It's another thing is he doesn't realize that his votes don't mean shit in comparison to like lobbyists from Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and
or even
other
King Salman. I mean, what's his name? MBS.
And I was gonna say something else. I
his
lost my train of thought.
Don't matter with lobbyists.
Yeah, and I mean he's going off campaign promises, but this is the thing: Biden already won the election, and the whole point that you guys were trying to not you. I'm talking about people like Vaush we're gonna get Biden elected because it'll be easier to organize a protest under him than under 4 more years of Trump. So we're gonna push him to the left. Well, he's already elected, and look at the way he's picking out his cabinet. It looks exactly like a Bush cabinet, only with more, more diversity. Yeah. So when are you guys going to start calling out his bullshit and pressuring? Because all people like Vaush do is tell everyone to vote for Biden, and then once he's elected, and then we criticize Biden, he accuses us of being red fascists and like closet Trump supporters, and then all it does is tell the Democratic Party, hey, you don't have to do shit for your constituents. You can fuck all of us as hard as you want, because at the end of the day, we're still going to vote for you, but we're just going to be a little bit more stern about it when we vote for you again.
That's absolutely true. And I mean, he's also if he's doing news commentary or whatever he does, he's also not raising awareness. Like, what kind of idiot? Like, Joe Biden was one of the biggest cheerleaders for the Iraq war. He wanted to balkanize Iraq. There was a video. Let me see if I can find that video of him. Iraq, what is it, 3 countries or whatever.
And while you're looking that up, I also wanted to say about organizing under Biden. I mean, who cracked down on Occupy and the what is it, DAPL pipeline?
Obama, and apparently he did not say the vulcanizing part, but whatever.
He was instrumental, and he was he played a huge role in trying to get Edward Snowden extradited.
And let's not forget that he was one of the I can't remember if he was the Senate minority leader or the majority leader, but he was in the top position. And 27 Democrats voted for the Iraq war, and Joe Biden was one of the pushers.
And even people like Bernie Sanders, people don't like to mention that he voted for the war of aggression on what was basically what was left of Yugoslavia.
Yep, in Kosovo. And and Joe Biden, on the other hand, just like there's a video in my old account, you can see he just went totally out there where he was like, let's bomb the Drina, let's bomb everything. And yeah, it was not, Joe Biden has this very, we are the puppet masters and you are the puppet view of the world. And he has not changed that since, like, God knows, I've never seen him not have that view.
Me neither. I mean, if someone can find evidence, I'm just not convinced. See, this is the thing. People like Hakeem don't care that people like Vaush think Biden or Trump is superior to the other. From Hakeem's perspective, hey, bombs are still being dropped, and your military is still occupying our country, and we don't have sovereignty.
And you have privatized almost everything. That was the whole green zone, but BS. Mm-hmm. And half the places don't even have water now.
And this is what I also hope people realize is, let's say everything about, in the case of Iraq, it was Saddam Hussein. Let's say that everything about him that the media said was true. Even then, like, no matter how terrible he might have been, how has a regime change operation led by the U.S. made things better? It hasn't.
Yeah, and if you look, but what people in America don't understand is that it is not possible to make things better with the U.S. intervention, because the U.S. only cares about capital and capitalism. So when they say, there's a human rights thingy in Libya, they don't care. Saudi Arabia is their best friend. You can do all the human rights as you want, as long as you don't, as long as you keep, like, selling the oil and extracting the minerals. So the only time they'll ever want to do intervention is when they want to get a foothold there in that country. And so it is impossible under capitalism for like a US intervention to make anything better for anyone. So you guys have to get that into your head. Okay, let's go on.
It's white savior bullshit to believe Biden is better than Trump on foreign policy. Notice how violently
That's not what we
these
said at
people
all.
will.
Well, it is definitely white savior bullshit to believe that, to be honest. I'm sorry.
It is, but at the same time, it's white savior because he was like, you should be thanking us that we got Joe Biden elected. That's
fuck that.
that's the actual white savior stuff. You know what? You're entitled to your bullshit opinion that like one candidate is better than the other, but you don't talk to a victim of U.S. imperialism like that. Just like I said, that's goes back to my son of a slave master example, going up to a slave saying, well, you should be thankful that I convinced my dad.
Or if like a British person comes to India and be like, oh, we looted over $47 trillion, but you should be thankful that we had a railway. And it's like, no, you actually deindustrialized India. And we actually were building our own railways, except now instead of serving our people, it's going to be like going up to Darjeeling and picking up the tea and coming back. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Will abuse identity politics when it serves their interests.
What the fuck is that? Okay.
Better than Trump on foreign policy. Notice how violently these people will abuse identity politics when it serves their interests too. So that makes me alt-right by saying that Biden is gonna do dude.
No, that does not make you alt-right. What makes you alt-right is your belief that white people know better inherently, no matter what the material conditions are. Do you have something to say?
No, I'm just looking at him in disgust.
Sorry.
All right. Respond to Hakeem when he responds inevitably. No, I don't care about these people. Guys, listen, tankies like Hakeem are literally a fucking cancer on online leftist discourse.
Yeah, that's all your discourse ever will be online.
Yeah. So what have tankies done in the past? Let's see. We have created the Soviet Union, sent people to outer space, China, North Korea, DPRK, like India, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia. Like you have, so you've been like you've been just like a person who plays video games online. So I don't know what kind of discourse, like the fact that it's all only online discourse. For example, he's not talking about revolutionary party building. He's not telling people to join a revolutionary party or make one. And so all his things is just like random thoughts out into a very long, boring Twitch stream.
And another thing is people just really act like the Soviet Union did absolutely nothing for, the global South.
Oh, we did absolutely everything.
But the thing is, if you look at the way that the third world changed after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when the U.S. just became the sole hegemony for the longest time.
Iraq has been bombed every year since 1991.
I mean, it was because the Comintern existed that in like the 30s, that like Southeast, like Vietnam, like Cambodia had such strong communist movements. And I mean, okay, certainly in places like Africa, the Soviet Union tried to help, but they were farther away. So the amount of help that they could have provided might have been a little bit limited. And then when you got to Khrushchev and Brezhnev, they weren't as principled as when it came to internationalism as Stalin.
But they helped with India too. Okay, with India, Stalin was like, we had a mass starvation created by the British, but Stalin said, documents can wait, hunger cannot, and just sent it over food with no conditions before. And even then, yeah, with Khrushchev, India, they helped India a lot. Like, and Brezhnev, like, we can't. I know that they were not as strong as Stalin, but even they were pretty good with India.
Yeah, and people just seem to forget that the Soviet Union had revolutionary schools where, revolutionaries from all over the world could go there and study revolution. And it wasn't just, sitting there learning theory, but it was actually working with revolutionary cadre who have had revolutionary experience and learning from them, but also applying the theory to their own countries. Like Harry Haywood, for example. I don't know if you've read his book, but
And the African National Congress, many members went to this. It was in Bulgaria, but close enough. They went and learned how to do guerrilla tactics. And not to mention a lot of people, so okay, so that there's one international solidarity aspect of everything. And then now with the countries that are around today, China, Venezuela, DPRK, Cuba, I'm sure I'm missing something, Bolivia. We need to be, as a leftist, we need to be offering unconditional loyalty, Argentina even, for their survival, right?
I mean, with any country, we need to stand up against imperialism going in the global south. I mean, every country, the US has no right to just go in and dictate other countries and tell them what to do, how to organize their economies, how to run things. I mean, you look at like IMF and World Bank loan stipulations.
Yep. I've actually done 3 episodes upon this, and one about how Africa needs monetary sovereignty about the IMF. So my audience should be very familiar.
I mean, you look at the Soviet Union, what they've done for world revolution, and you look at Vaush. What does Vaush do? He goes and supports the Hong Kong black shirts.
Yeah, and in Hong Kong, okay, let's just briefly, I wrote an article recently. So there was a guy who killed his pregnant girlfriend in Taiwan and dumped her in the ocean, and then he came back to Hong Kong. And he confessed about it to the police, and he was like, ha ha, I killed my pregnant girlfriend, who was 19. And so in this one particular situation, they thought that they should make some sort of extradition law because this case was so egregious. And that's when Joshua Wong and whoever went in. But the funny thing is that within 1 month, they pulled that law of protest. Like they just said, okay. And they still continued to protest over like various things over and over for the next year.
And the other thing is if you actually look at the extradition bill, if it's between Hong Kong and mainland China, for example, it has to be something that's illegal in both territories. Let's say you go to mainland China and do something that's illegal in mainland China but legal in Hong Kong, and you make it back to Hong Kong before you're caught in mainland China, they can't extradite you for that. And then the one argument that I got from liberals is, well, you're assuming that China actually follows the law. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, then why does it matter if there is a law or isn't a law? If they just do whatever they want anyways.
Yeah.
Like, then why do you care?
Exactly.
Like, be consistent.
Oh yeah, and on top of it, I call it all projection, because we know that the U.S. doesn't care about the laws, but whatever. Okay.
They don't convert anyone. The only people they convert are fucking lefties over to pseudo-fascism. Okay?
What the huh?
Who's the pseudo-fascist?
Okay? I don't give a fuck about any of these people. They're worthless, okay? They're a cancer. I don't give a fuck about any of them. I'm not going to continue to bolster their channel by giving them attention because I, with my superior ideas, got fucking 5 times the subs Hakeem did in half the time, okay? I know what I do works. I'm not going to keep giving these guys fucking freebies. The only
Okay, I will not reveal his real name, but I have checked his address, and he does live in Beverly Hills, and I believe his apartment or house rent costs like $5,000 a month, which I checked.
But it's like he acts as if everyone just does this for YouTube views.
Yes, he does it because he does it for YouTube views. I do it because I care about the world. So we don't. Yes, you're right. That's projection.
If we want to go there, I can say I've sold more CDs than Vaush has, but I mean, what does that prove? It proves nothing.
That you can sing better.
Well, he doesn't have CDs, so it's kind of like a stupid argument. Anyways, it's like, yeah, I'm not an internet streaming personality, so of course I don't have views. And Hakeem is a full-time doctor
who's doing heart surgery, and you're like a gamer.
Yeah. One is more useful for society than the other, I must say.
Absolutely. Like, yeah. Anyways, okay, let's go.
The reason I went over that video is because people keep emailing me to do so. And I did, and it was stupid. That video was dumb, and I was right. What's this? Hey guys, do me a favor, clip out Vaush's non-criticism of my video and upload it separately to YouTube so I can deal with it. Okay. Also, Vaush, I know you're reading this. Next time how about letting me know you responded instead of hiding it and hoping I don't find out? What? Next time, how about letting me know you responded instead of hiding it and hoping I... Yeah, hiding it by going over it with 10,000 people watching it?
No, the thing is, it was in the middle of like a 5-hour video. Like there was a 1-hour segment in a 5-hour video of him responding to Hakeem. And the fact that he didn't let Hakeem know just shows that it's not okay, maybe he's not hiding it, but he's definitely not interested in discourse and discussion. And he just wants to have a cheap dunk on Hakeem. Whereas Hakeem went through Vaush's video and broke down like why exactly this argument is wrong and why he's mistaken and why his interpretations of, let's say, Lenin or Mao or whatever are wrong. I think that's different than just playing a video and saying, "Oh, you're stupid." What? Like, how is that tokenizing?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, okay, so let's go on.
I don't make a YouTube video. I don't at the people. Yeah, sneakily streaming it, you know? And like uploaded it unlisted or something? I don't even know. These people.
It was unlisted.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm just browsing
This
the
gets
memes.
hilarious, actually.
One of the reasons why I do like engaging with drama. One of the thing though, as I don't like platforming. Also, well, the funny thing is that this is misusing the meme format because the purpose of the meme is that the smaller entity prevails over the larger entity. That's the purpose of the meme. Have you ever seen like a big fantasy piece where a small warrior stands against a giant and the giant wins? No, it isn't. You're wrong. Wait, am I wrong? I thought the purpose of the meme was that the big thing loses. Well, it doesn't really matter.
He doesn't even read
the point
meme
that
theory.
I was getting at, though, is that
yeah, that's what I wanted to say here. And okay, there's a catch-22. What time do you have to go?
I'm free all day today.
Okay, excellent. You were looking at your watch, so I got nervous. But one thing, okay, so this is like I'm about two mindsets about this person. One thing is he has the dumbest possible tweets, but he's also not very big. So I'm at like what do you think? Should we like show some of the dumb tweets?
Sure, why not?
Okay, which one do we want to start with? The one where oh God, he had a big night yesterday or 2 nights ago. So I can't even, oh my God. Okay.
Just pull them up and we just play it by ear?
Yeah. Okay, let me find the first one where he started with the really stupidness. Okay, just give me a second. So, sorry, I'll cut this out in when we. Okay, so I guess I did. Okay, so let's see. Oh, okay, let's start with the physics part.
Well, last time I did physics was in high school, so
no, it doesn't
hopefully
matter.
Okay. If Vaush can talk about communist theory, then I can talk about physics.
Well, no, we're not even talking about physics, but this is okay. I'm gonna obscure his name, so in hopes of I know. I'm just gonna get a screenshot, so that way we don't have to show his name to the world. Okay, so let's share the screen. Okay, so do you see this tweet?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the first dumb tweet of the day.
Well, the thing is, when we say that it's a science. It's it's a science in the case that it's a social science.
Yes.
It's not written as some sort of prophecy, but it's based on observations that were made by, like, for example, when Marx wrote Capital, he analyzed, like, hey, what gives things value and why are people exploited? Like, how do we define it in terms that are consistent? With Lenin, he looked at, okay, well, when Marx wrote Capital, for example, capitalism hadn't gotten to the imperialist stage fully yet, so Marx couldn't have seen things like the theory of unequal development, you know. So that's why, like, if it were just a religion, then there wouldn't be Marxist Leninism after Marxism, and there wouldn't, like,
Well, at least what I think of it is, okay. So Mao Zedong said something like, what happens is that the way the elites see the world is they look at themselves and they're like, okay, I'm in a palace and I'm a princess and this is just. So now here's how I'm going to do the ideology to justify me being a princess in a palace. But the way poor people see the world is not that, because they have actual problems to solve. So they need to look at the world the way it is and kind of figure out how to navigate in the world the way it is. So whenever the elites write about their worldview, it's called idealism, where you have it's like a ex post facto justification for status quo. And unfortunately, in schools and all the elite institutions, that's what's being taught to kids, is that ex post facto justification for status quo. Entire economics departments are made out of that. What we want is the opposite, because we want to see the world without that ideology so that we can solve an actual problem, like, let's make sure that the kids get dinner, or, oh my God, we have millions of children who aren't immunized. Let's do that. And so that is, I guess, the main difference between idealism and materialism, in my opinion.
And it's called science. Yes, I agree totally. And it's called a science because we don't assume that we're right about everything. We accept the fact that some of our theories might be wrong, and if that is the case, they will be updated. For example, Marx imagined that socialist revolution would first occur in the advanced capitalist societies, but that's not how history played out. So the theory was updated. If we did not approach this from a perspective of like science, from a scientific perspective, we would have tried to, I don't know, like, justify, oh, that wasn't real then.
Yeah, exactly. And then okay, I get. Oh wait, this is not live, so we can actually clip out things. So we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so he did that. Everyone made fun of him for that, as normal.
I want to see his first following tweet saying it fails as a science because.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah, it refuses to correct itself when it fails.
What is he talking about?
In fact, because it presupposes everything about its methods and goals and justifies them backwards. It's called pseudoscience, folks.
What?
Okay, just go back to my example about how Marx thought that revolution would happen first in the advanced capitalist societies, and that's not how it played out. So that's how Lenin had developed his theory of unequal development. But whatever.
And then Georgy Dimitrov in Bulgaria, he had to change his theory completely because under Lenin there was like a quasi-legal party structure that they could have, and under fascism in Bulgaria that was not possible. So then he had to figure out a new way. And so you see him updating it for like fascist countries. And yeah.
He looks so smug in his profile picture. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, he looks really, okay. He's been getting on my nerves a lot, but I'll explain our Twitter brief soon. Okay, so do you have anything else to say about this thread?
Let me see. I just don't understand why Marxist is in quotes, but Leninism isn't.
Because he is somebody who dislikes Lenin for no good reason. I mean, he just dislikes Lenin because God knows why. Probably because he's like not very smart and has like Cold War lies imbibed in him. So so basically he thinks he's one of those Chomsky like people who thinks
It's
like
like
all
academic Marxism, which is like you remove Marx is okay if you get rid of Engels. Lenin is well, not in his case, but in some people's cases, they're like Lenin is okay if we remove him from Stalin, and it's we just don't want anything that can actually challenge that is actually useful for the people. We just want something that that like these academic pseudo intellectuals can circle jerk to.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this was like a funny thing. No. Let me find out. Was actually really funny. A few. Okay. So then. Okay. This is where it got embarrassing. Okay. Where did it go? Okay, so then he says, authoritarian leftists, do you really want to play the who did the biggest, bigger, and worst atrocities game? And it's like, I'm like, absolutely. No doubt about it. US, my friend.
I don't even agree with the whole U.S. did more atrocities externally and the USSR did more internally.
No. I'm saying just if you count atrocity, like I put here, I said, why do I know that? USSR never issued orders like kill everything that moves.
Yeah.
And here's an example. Nazis. What was the USSR's position? Shoot them. USS position? Smuggle them to South America and have that, right?
Or rehabilitate some of the ones that are not like the super high level, like at the highest level, and just let them work in West Germany.
Exactly. And then Nelson Mandela. Bush, number 2, was the one who declassified him as a terrorist. So but you understand that it's obvious that it's like obvious that it's obvious that like we're talking about yeah. Anyways, he changed it later, but then his imperialism take was so cringy. I could not. I just okay. I'm gonna edit out me scanning. Just be patient. I'm so sorry. Is this okay?
Yeah, this is entertaining.
Okay.
Because I'm still catching glimpses of.
He is so horrible. Like he,
Reverse imperialism. It sounds like reverse racism to me.
Exactly. So he deleted this tweet, but thankfully, I took a screenshot somewhere. You need coffee or something?
No, I'm good.
Where did I take the screenshot? I have a screenshot of that dumb tweet somewhere. I'll show it to you. But okay. And lastly, we'll have to go through the CIA propaganda because it's not him, but it's hilarious nonetheless.
You went hard.
Yes, he annoyed me for some. Oh, I know why, but okay. It says you aren't imperialist if you support states. You're just an imperial competitor.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's what I joked about being reverse imperialism because.
You know what that reminds me of?
What?
People who like will say that, you know, they just copy and paste their analysis of like America onto other countries. For example, like there is a reason why we are against like the border wall between the US and Mexico. It's because oftentimes the people in Latin America who like do illegal border crosses into the US is because the US
squad.
Yeah, the US keeps on destabilizing countries in Latin America because of, you know, because they're looking for imperialist profits, and life is so difficult that they would rather risk coming to the United States and getting treated like shit as like second and third class citizens, or not even citizens. Then nobody wants to leave home like that. Okay, so we are against the border wall because it's kind of like if your country causes that sort of like, what is it, like immigration crisis, then you're kind of obligated to, like, from a, if you have morals at all, to let them in. Whereas a country like Cuba,
or
for
East
example.
Germany.
Yeah, or a country like Cuba is not obligated to let, first world like people from the imperial court go live there and just take advantage of the social benefits they have just because they don't just because they're not happy living in America or whatever, because it's a different situation, because their resources are limited, they're not imperialist, and they barely have like because of the sanctions, they're having like they're having a bit of a challenge just making ends meet, making everything work out for themselves.
Yeah. And on top of it, let's if you want to talk about walls, let's talk about the East German anti-fascist wall. Like there was a time where West American / West German like fascists would go in like once they just like killed 8,000 cattle, and so if they want to have a wall, keep that. Like so, it depends on the situation. You can't just say walls are bad. Or anything is like one way all bad or all good.
Another thing is like brain drain. I mean, was it an ideal situation? No. Could it have been handled better? I don't know, maybe, but they did what they thought they had to do at the time. And if you were really against if you're really against the Berlin Wall, then what you do is you call for your country
To
to
stop.
stop. Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
you were probably going to say it more elegantly than I would have.
I said you call for your country to stop sending in fascist terrorists to East Germany, and then disband and charge all the fascists and make sure that fascists aren't in power. And then yes, the wall would come down.
If socialism were so doomed to fail, then why does the U.S. spend so much resources trying to sabotage any attempt at anything even resembling socialism?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And then okay, this one gets really funny. Okay, so I made I had a tweet that says, CIA, godless commies in country X ate babies and tortured kittens. Anarchists. Because the communists in country X eat babies and torture kittens, X is not real socialism. Also anarchists. I'm not repeating CIA propaganda. I'm saying the opposite. So the first reply I got is this one who claims that this is Holodomor.
Here's the thing: none of us denied that there was a famine.
But wait, this is the Bengal famine, just so people know.
Yeah. But none of us deny that there was a famine in 1932, 1933 in like the Ukraine area and the Caucasus, that general area. But to frame it as a genocide is hilarious in many ways, because that was the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. If you intentionally cause a famine there, then you're intentionally causing a famine throughout the whole country. And another thing is famines happened all the time before industrialization.
Yeah, and that same year, China, India, like everything in Asia had famine. But the funniest is this is the next site he source he cited when I told him that not to cite the CIA propaganda.
Have you read Fraud, Famine, and Fascism by Douglas Tuttle?
I read half of it, but I'm laughing because
I know.
It's like, dude, you just like why not do? And then it gets even worse because I checked the site. Jesus, come on.
You know what's funny? If you look at some of the pictures, like the army officers are wearing Tsarist uniforms and not Soviet ones.
Okay. So it's not even okay. Exactly.
So I mean, in the 30s, this story was mostly propagated by the Hearst press.
Well, no, it was worse than that. Lee Ivy, who was paid directly by Hitler, paid this British Welsh journalist named Gareth Jones, who was on a private jet with Hitler before his trip to Ukraine. Like exactly, a private jet with Adolf himself. And then after that, he went to Ukraine and made up the Holodomor stuff. And then he came back and showed his notes to Goebbels and Hitler before, where they got to like edit out stuff. And then he published it to the Hearst presses.
Yeah, I mean, they also sent this one guy to go to the Soviet Union, but he like didn't really even go to Ukraine.
It's not. Gareth Jones definitely went to Ukraine.
No, I'm talking about someone else.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And this was kind of, people back then just thought of it as yellow journalism, but then in the 1980s they kept on, they revived the story, and then it was taken more seriously then. And there was also in during World War II in Western Ukraine, there were a lot of Nazi collaborators.
Oh yeah, OUNB, Stefan.
Yeah, and they
We did
ended up in
a full
Canada.
episode on that. And they're ending up to be the prime ministers, Chrystia Friedland. I saw that.
And now they're just and then they were also pushing the story, and to this day they're still doing like all these like so-called Holodomor stories. And what's really bad about this is they, I mean, they picked the name because it sounds like Holocaust. So then like if you question the mainstream narrative about it, they paint you as a Holocaust denier.
Except the mainstream, it depends. Like if you ask any decent anthropologist, agriculturist, like any decent human, they'll say no, it was not. It was like a famine that happened, and that happened back in the day a lot, and it was like mostly an act of nature, except for the kulaks burning the crops, but that's a different story.
I mean, there was also the miscalculation of thinking that it would have been a decent harvest. So then, I mean, there were grain exports that year, but as soon as it was made clear that the situation was bad, the exports, I mean, the grain aid was sent to the areas impacted by the famine
immediately.
Yeah.
And you can also see internal documents where people were shocked at the famine and they didn't know what to do. So yes, but yeah, and but what I was laughing at was this anarchist who literally listed CIA propaganda without even realizing it on a thread about CIA propaganda. So I've asked Ben Norton this last week, and I'm gonna ask you before we sign off. What should, like, let's say you're a total whitey and you are not exposed to any of the nuances. Like, what is the first thing you need to do to inoculate yourself from regime change propaganda?
Just think about how the media is willing to lie about someone as not threatening as Bernie Sanders, or how before there were everyone had cameras on their phones, how people were left out of the dark about just police lynchings of Black people. Now, it's easier to see lies that are happening in America when you're in America, right? So then it's harder for the media to lie completely about domestic issues.
Yeah.
But if you don't have, let's say you don't have connections with people outside of this country, or like you don't have recent family history from other countries, especially those impacted by US imperialism. The thing is, imperialism just becomes an abstract concept and not something that's concrete. Yes?
Oh, no, I was gonna, this was so I remember, but not all exiles are trustworthy though. Because a lot of them are like do you remember the egg monopoly lady?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'm gonna put that tweet up. Do you remember it, or do you need to see it?
I don't remember it word for word, but it's basically some like some Chinese girl saying that her family used to have this egg monopoly, but Mao took it away.
Yeah,
which doesn't make sense, because even to this day, most people get their eggs from like on wet markets.
No. Somebody did some research. She totally had an egg monopoly in some part of China, but that means her.
It was local. It wasn't like nationwide.
Yeah. Where did it go? I'll find it. Yeah, it was she said, okay, I found it. My great grandfather had and my grandmother was super rich, living in a mansion. And when the Cultural Revolution happened, the communists took everything away. So what often happens is that, just so you remember, in America between 1947 and 1990, maybe even now, I don't know, communists were not allowed to come to America because they didn't want you to see the truth. So what you got were these people who used to be members of the royal family, the rich. And to them, they're like, my profits. And so like when you take even like a little away from the rich, they offer, like Ben Shapiro is a good US example where he's like, oh my God, reverse racism, white genocide. not because anything happened that's like actually threatening his rights, but because they raised his taxes by $30 or something like that. Like that same phenomenon of the counter-revolutionary exists abroad too. So often these people, the worst is the Yeonmi Park. Is that her name?
Pagyunmi, yeah, Yeonmi Park.
What's her name?
Pagyunmi.
Yeah, Park Geun-mi. She's a North Korean defector who keeps changing stories about how her dad died and just everything.
Do you see recently she's not doing even just making shit up about Korea anymore. She's even making up stories about America. Like she was recently on some right-wing YouTube channel. I forgot what it was. It was some guy, but she was like, America's becoming so dangerous. The other day, I was attacked. Okay, so she said she was. This is her words, not mine. She was attacked and robbed by big black women. But then, like in her story, it started off with 2 of them, but then it ended up with 3. So I don't know. Maybe one more person joined it, and she said that passersby just looked and called her a racist and didn't intervene. And she was like, "Well, I am a color of person too." She's a color of person, and then she was like, how can I be a racist? Like my family's caretaker, is Muslim, and I let him or her wear a hijab. And I mean, I don't think the story's true, but if it were, it's like, where you wouldn't have been robbed, like if you just stayed in Korea, because like there is like, it's a more equal society, and people aren't pushed, like aren't desperate enough to just go around and like beating you up to take your money. But that's assuming the story was true to begin with.
It's not.
Probably most likely not.
I know of her because there was this. She has 4 different stories about how her dad allegedly died, and each one is different, and she can't keep a track. But then I'm just going to assume that everything she said was a lie. But what you notice is that there's a foundation called the Atlas Foundation, which is owned by the Koch brothers. Atlas Network. They pay her like at least $1 million in appearance fees. And so, sure, I'm going to say, oh yeah, in North Korea, they ate babies or whatever. If you're being paid $1 million, there's that. But there's also the other one where, that in South Korea, when people come in, like they're like basically like put through like enhanced interrogation tactics, and they're kind of made to like say whatever crap. So yes, defectors are pretty unreliable.
I mean, and this is the thing. I don't doubt that in a sanctioned country like the DPRK, life can be hard, and there are many reasons. It leaves a lot to be desired. In many ways, and it's plausible that someone might want to leave and whatever. But here's the thing, like, you can just be honest about what you were unhappy about. You don't need to justify your story with lies that are easily debunked. For example, she's like, Park Geun-mi said that before she had left North Korea, she did not know that other races existed. But this is the thing, you go there, you look at their propaganda posters, a lot of it's like depictions of the Korean War. Guess who's in those posters? People who don't look Korean at all. And then she's like, I've never seen a world map before. Well, you just
what?
Okay, so she said that okay, and then she also said there was only one channel on TV and it's all propaganda. Not true. Here's the thing, if you watch their news, like the opening sequence, like one of the first thing that shows up is a world map.
Yeah, and on top of that, I do remember like in the Olympics 2 years ago, where BBC said something like, North Korea's not showing the opening ceremony, and this person was like, why are you looking at the news channel? Switch to the sports channel.
Well, the other thing is over there, a lot of things are not covered live, but
tape delayed.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like in other countries before live broadcasts were common.
That makes sense. And so I've seen this one North Korean news broadcast about COVID-19, and I only thing I have to say is it is the most accurate broadcast I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. She also claimed that there's no such thing as desserts in North Korea. So I sent her a picture of some ice cream that I had there, and then she blocked me. This was on Facebook, but she hasn't blocked my new She hasn't blocked my new Twitter yet, but she blocked my old one after we got into a small altercation because I took a picture of a world map that I saw at a children's camp, and I tagged her. I said like lying Pagyami says that kids aren't taught what Africa is, but as you can see, Africa's on this map. And she just deflected and she was like, if you think North Korea is that much better than democracy, why don't you move there? I'll even buy you a ticket. So then a lot of people just started commenting, asking if they can get tickets as well.
Yeah. So do tell us about your trip. Like, can anyone go, or is there restriction on American side, Korean side? Like, how do you get to North Korea?
If you want to go as a tourist, you find a tour company. They're usually based in China. Like some examples are Young Pioneer Tours or Koryo Tours. And but the thing is, right now, there is, ever since the Otto Warmbier incident, the U.S. imposed a ban on U.S. citizens from traveling there with a U.S. passport. Now, if you're a dual citizen and you have a passport of another country, then you're still allowed to go. The DPRK doesn't care. The only thing is you can't go with a U.S. passport, not because the DPRK doesn't let you in, but because these China-based tour companies don't want to bear the risk. Because if something happens and the U.S. finds out, then they might get in trouble. That's understandable. Now, if you're not a U.S. citizen and you want to go there, you can look up a tour company. And what happens is those companies, they work with KITC in Korea. KITC is the Korean International Tour Company. It's the state-owned tour agency in the DPRK. And what happens is the quality of your tour more like somewhat depends on like the relationship between the tour company you book with and KITC. Because what KITC does is, for example, YPT, they're a little bit more budget oriented and its travelers are a bit younger. So then KITC will take this into consideration and be like, well, these are younger people looking to have a good time. So, at the end of the day, we're going to take them to bars and they'll do that kind of stuff. Like they'll take that sort of stuff into consideration. And when you go there, you'll have one foreign tour guide. So like let's say you book with YPT, you'll have a YPT guide, and then you'll have two KITC guides, and they're really friendly people. And if you have any problems, their job is to make you feel as comfortable as you can. And if you have any questions, or if you want to talk to anyone, or even need a translator, that's what they're pretty much there for. Or if you need a drinking partner.
That's cool. And how did you end up going there?
Well, I mean, I have family history in Korea, so I've always wanted to go see the North for the longest time. And I was living in Taiwan at the time, and my dad was living in Beijing, and like a lot of the tours depart from Beijing, so I was just like, well, I kind of want to go there, and I guess I haven't seen my dad in a while, so I'll just go to Beijing, and then from there I'll take the train to Pyongyang.
And then what happened? So you took the train from Beijing to Pyongyang, and how long is the ride?
Well, you first make a stop in Dandong. Dandong is the city like on the Yalu River. It's right across. It's in China. It's right across from Korea's Siniju.
Okay.
So you take the train. It's from Beijing to Dandong. It's 16 hours, and then from Dandong to Pyongyang, it's maybe like 6 hours. But you have like customs in the middle.
I see.
You don't have to necessarily go from. That's how my tour worked. Ideally, what I would have done was I would have taken a flight or fast train from Beijing to Dandong, and then taking the train from there to Pyongyang. I wanted to. My plan was to go one way and by train and the other by plane, but it was during National Week in 2018, so like all the planes were booked. But what had happened was on our way back, for some reason, none of the trains were available. Domestic trains in Korea were available, so they ended up arranging a chartered flight for us from Pyongyang to Iju, and we actually landed. It was like a military base airport. And then we took a bus from there to the border city of Siniju, and then we got back to Dandong. And then from Dandong, we took a train to Beijing.
I know I sound crazy, but now it's making me hungry for Korean food. Not that there's other things. I'm sure there's other things, but I'm like, I'm thinking of all these Korean dishes are coming in my mind. But what was how's the food different in the North and the South?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's not a super big country, but it's not a small country difference. So regardless of which side of the DMZ you're on, there's going to be regional differences in food. So I mean, it's just if you've grown up eating Korean food, or if you have eaten Korean food like from the South and you go to the North, it's kind of like, oh, this is familiar, but it's a little bit different, for example.
Okay.
So
Anything
there's a feeling of familiarity, but also freshness.
anything else you want to either talk about Western chauvinism or how to be actual leftist or Korea?
Well, I think you know how Lenin said imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Then by that logic, I think anti-imperialism is the highest stage of class struggle.
Yes.
And I said this before. I said you know, a lot of times the problem that the Western left has is when we criticize them for their lack of understanding of imperialism and not standing up to imperialists, not standing up to their country's imperialism, like oftentimes their go-to defense will be, well, you're ruining left unity.
No.
But if your left unity is built upon, you know, throwing the international working class under the bus, then it's a reactionary unity to begin with, and we're not obligated to uphold it. Why is it ruining left unity when we criticize Bernie Sanders for calling Hugo Chavez a dead dictator? But then it's perfectly okay. But then it's perfectly okay to like for like Ocasio-Cortez to just voice support for the Hong Kong protests.
Oh yeah. Well, and another thing, what I see with that too is that she's either not brave or not ideological or I won't go into her mind, but yeah, she is pretty bad on the imperial line. And yeah, what you guys need to do is you need to understand how US regime change propaganda works immensely. So your project needs to be, I do not ever want to be duped again like I did for the Iraq war. Your project can't be, you can't be, unless you're like that and it's a life-seeking mission. Yes, I love William Bloom. Yes, Rogue State. Yes.
It's like this is like an abridged version of Killing Hope. If you haven't studied imperialism at all yet, I highly recommend this book, and also Against Empire by Michael Perenni.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Two great books. On top of that, just remember that if you remember that the U.S. does not do anything that like the U.S. intervention has never made anything better, and everything worse. So even just that blindness should keep you a little bit skeptical. But if not, things I will say is, when they say protesters, why are they saying pro-democracy protesters? Is it because they can't find anything else good to say about them? What kind of flags are they holding up? What is it, like a small group? And then you'll have to see what does the other country say? And so just because they seduce you with visions of like freedom versus dictatorship, remember, it's not that. It's, do I want my water privatized while my child is stolen into child prostitution, or do I want the status quo? And so that's what usually the U.S. has in store for the country.
Yes, definitely. I think there just needs to be a more serious study of international history, and not the history that's just, you know, taught by mainstream media or the stuff you learn in high school, for example.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we exist. But thank you for the plug, historically.substack.com. But absolutely get more curious, and it should be driven by curiosity. And remember, if you're wrong, you know what's going to happen? The death squads that the US support are going to bayonet babies. So do not be on the side of bayoneting babies.
Yes, I mean, if people say that the left is weak in the U.S. because I don't know, because we don't vote Democrat enough,
Who cares?
but I think the left is weak because there is a lack of solidarity with workers worldwide.
Absolutely. I mean,
If you
yes.
keep on supporting color revolution and regime change abroad, they're just going to be like, you know what? I don't care if you call yourself the leftist. Fuck you.
You're a fascist at that point. I mean, how many color revolutions can you support before you become, when, like, in some of them, they're not even hidden. In Belarus, they're flying their fascist flag. So
The
yeah,
playbook never changes.
yes,
Like
it has.
hardly ever change. Like for example, they're trying to do in China with the Xinjiang situation
Uh-huh.
was basically what they did successfully in Yugoslavia.
Exactly. And then what they tried to unsuccessfully do in Syria. And yeah, it has never changed whatsoever. So, and what you do, okay. I know, okay, this is, okay, one person said this, but it kind of hit me. So I want to kind of explain this. He's like, oh my God, you guys are accusing the CIA of doing everything. This sounds like a conspiracy theory. And I'm like, no.
It's public record.
Exactly. These are actual public records that the CIA admits to. You can go to cia.gov in their reading room and download this and read it. What we say are not conspiracy theories. But what Republicans do when they're like outside actor is that they've done this in the past. They know that. They feel guilty about it. So that's why whenever they lash out, they're just like, oh my God, it must be Russia and China, because they're feeling guilty about all the coups they've done over the world and they're projecting it. But right?
So this is the thing. Yes, there are conspiracy theories that are just really wacky, but conspiracies do exist. And when there's evidence of conspiracies and we point them out, they're no longer conspiracy theories, but conspiracies.
Exactly. And the fundamental nature is that the reason why the Republicans engage in propaganda that kind of sounds a lot like what let's say Bolivia might say is because for the past 15 years, Republicans have been secretly arming these Nazis in Santa Cruz. There's one WikiLeaks that's hilarious where this man is hiding weapons behind his like shed or something. And they're like, oh, totally safe place to send weapons to. So then when the Bolivians say it, they're actually telling you the absolute truth. Republicans are projecting on that and they're saying there's, oh my God, some Russia, or even Democrats, Russia, China. But that is because those nations, when they say it, it's the absolute truth. And we should do this more often. So
Yeah, definitely. This is like my social life now.
Oh, I'm sorry, with the COVID?
Yeah. So I mean, another thing. This is kind of a thread I made a while back. If you don't mind, I just kind of want to end on this.
Okay, how about, should I share the screen or?
No, I can just read it.
I found it. Oh, hold on. Let me share the screen. Okay, give me 1 second. The thread. Okay. Give me just 1 second. Well,
I don't think I sent it to you, so I can just read it from here.
If you read it and then give me, and I'll superimpose the graphics.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
How about that?
Yeah, sure. Let me. It's,
okay.
So the U.S. left suffers from three serious problems, and more than three, but these are the three that I just wanted to talk about at the time. An utter lack of respect for theory and a deeply ingrained pessimism about the prospects of revolution. Now, this one gets misinterpreted a lot. They're like, well, you know, if you've seen the way America is, then you would be pessimistic too. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, it's their lack of trust in the people and the potential of the people. I mean, in the words of Chairman Mao Zedong, the people and only the people are the driving force of the making of history, or something along those lines. Yeah.
Correct.
And there's also an inability to just cast off like these bourgeois ways of thinking that no one is immune from this, not even us, like that we just absorb by living in capitalist society. And there's these types of so-called communists like Vaush, who pretend to be communists when nothing's really happening, but then during election seasons they become Democrats. Well, in the case of Vaush, I think he's a Democrat, just not even not even just during election seasons. And then they don't understand communism beyond the memes because they don't want to actually pick up theory and study, and they prefer to just rely on like YouTube and memes for education. Not that there's wrong with just like relying on like Twitter or whatever for education, but if you want to have a better grasp of these things, you have to work through some of them. Now, I saw a comment in that Vaush video saying that's all these tankies ever do is read theory. It's like, no, but theory and history are guides to action.
Yeah, because often capital doesn't change much at all. When you read Lenin, you actually know who the Paul Krugman of Tsarist Russia is. And so they have the same dumb theory idea. Like, so a lot of these situations we've been through before.
And the thing is, if you read, for example, the short course, like history of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union short course, you'll find that a lot of the trends back then, like, you know, the petty bourgeois, like so-called socialist trends, and like the Narodniks, the liquidators, whatnot, you can draw equivalencies with many, like, you know, pseudo leftists today. So when you neglect reading theory and history, what ends up happening is you end up repeating the same errors that have already been prevented, and in your attempt to reinvent the wheel that actually turns out to have already been invented and was broken.
Exactly. And another thing is that and don't imbibe CIA, like, sorry, just Western propaganda, just like, I don't know how to tell you guys this, but often when you read history, you realize like a lot of either with Mao or Stalin, like I gave an explanation the other day where I looked up this struggle session. And basically, the guy's crimes were something like slavery, genocide. He raped 500 people and then he murdered 30. And then they just like hugged it out and he was forgiven. But in America, they try to make it like some crazy, cruel ritual. So what you realize is that both Mao and Stalin have been infinitely patient with the nonsense they put up. And so
they didn't. Yeah. They also didn't micromanage their country. So yeah, you know, in the heat of the moment, and especially in like difficult times, yeah, some people might have done some bad things. You know, for example, like, this is not saying that it's okay, but like when the Red Army, you know, committed rape in Berlin, that's definitely not okay. But you know what Stalin said about it? Whoever does it gets shot. Now, Stalin was in Moscow, the Red Army was in Berlin. Can you really blame that on Stalin? It's as terrible as it was. Is it really Stalin's fault that it happened?
Well, and then of course, I was with the same idiot the other day where he said that they purged thousands and thousands, and I'm like, okay, give me one name, literally one name of somebody who was purged who was not a Nazi, and he failed at that.
Well, there was also the case of Nazis infiltrating and providing bad intelligence just to sow like disarray.
Einsatz, yeah, I'm writing a piece about the whole Einsatzgruppen that's going to come out hopefully later this week. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but I'm just saying what you'll realize is when you read theory, it's like, oh, they were infinitely patient, opposite of authoritarian, even among American terms. Like, no American would have been that patient with that level of violence.
And I'm just gonna go on with the thread. It's like I said, a desire to see socialism is one thing, but without grounding in theory, these people will always go back to the bourgeois liberal ideas and activities that they're surrounded with. They'll pose as revolutionaries, but they don't really believe that revolutionary is possible. And then they'll say things like, yeah, well, Sanders is the best thing we can get here in the US, or the classic, would you rather have Trump? And you can tell them that the reason for that is their own refusal to organize outside of the Democratic Party and build a political alternative, but it kind of falls on deaf ears. And I'm sure you and I have both had many interactions that more or less follow the same script. Am I correct?
Yes, identical.
Yep. But then these people will go around posting like guillotine memes, and they'll like drop a bunch of Lenin quotes out of context that they don't really even understand. But then when push comes to shove, they do not want to really work for revolution. And yeah, I know things look bleak, but capitalism is deteriorating. And I mean, even people in like the Tsarist Russia in like 1890 didn't think that 1917 would have happened.
Well, even Lenin in 1917 didn't think that 1917 would have happened.
What are you going to do? Just sit there and just whine and just be really pessimistic? Or are you going to, we still have the job of educating ourselves to the best of our abilities and educating those around us and lay the groundwork for this sort of stuff whenever it's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And the main thing the reason why we don't have it is because we don't have a revolutionary proletariat that's politically conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So just to help, like even go talking to your neighbors, it can be useful.
It's more useful than just voting for Democrats. And these people are like, well, what we need to do is we need to join the Democratic Party and push them left. No, you know what happens when you go into the Democratic Party?
AOC.
Yes, you get de-radicalized. That's what they do. They like, okay, Bernie Sanders did not popularize socialism. Like, oh, it's just like great man theory. What happened was when Occupy happened, people started questioning capitalism and socialism once again entered the mainstream. And that's when Bernie Sanders, there was also that Michael Moore documentary. That's when Bernie Sanders was like, you guys, I've been a socialist this whole time. Socialism is when government does stuff and you want capitalism and we need to defeat Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And then it just confuses people as to what socialism. He has the clout to actually push these people to the left and, you know, fight, hold people accountable. But no, all he's doing is he's just channeling them right back to the center or to the right and campaigning for Biden.
That's also true. And one more thing is that, well, he has the list for a revolutionary party to create, like if he just gave like somebody like he trusts, like Brie or anybody, like his list, we could create a revolutionary party with just that people who donated to him. And yeah, so that's not happening.
He has shown that he can mobilize the masses.
Exactly. So the masses can be mobilized. They just need to be politically conscious. And I guess that's up to you to make them politically conscious. And it can be honestly as simple as talking to your neighbor about their worries. Like, let's say, are they going to get kicked out? Do you even know your neighbor's name?
A lot of people, when they think of revolution, they think, or like organizing, they just think of like the adrenaline pumping that happens like when you go to protests. But honestly, I think with organizing, most of the stuff that you're doing, like the day-to-day stuff, is not what people think of as exciting. It's going around knocking on doors, it's investigating, it's figuring out what people's needs are, what people's concerns are, and finding the most ideologically and politically advanced among them and working with them, learning from them, teaching them, so then they can go and like become leaders and learn more from their communities and also teach their communities,
Yes. That's exactly what. Oh, one thing though. This brings us to the vanguard where people misunderstood it. The vanguard weren't a group of elites. It's just that Lenin had about 15 people, like when he first started the study circles, in that he said, okay, I understand that we're not going to liberate all of Russia with 15 people, but let's think of ourselves as the vanguard and we'll go start recruiting more people. So every company, every organization starts with like 10 people, 15 people, and then they get bigger and bigger. And so that's what the vanguard is. You have to understand that the idea is that if you talk with people more, send them more literature, just connect with them more, you can persuade them that this whole revolution thing is a good idea.
And some would be persuaded sooner than others. And those people who grasp these theories will become the vanguard sooner. But the goal is to get more people into the vanguard. It's not like, okay, it's going to be an elite cool kids club.
Oh, no. It was just basically the first 15 people. And it was like Lenin's way of saying, it's okay that there's just 15 people. We can still do it.
I mean, these people, they're just these so-called, like, I call them gentrified leftists. They're just, even from a reformist perspective, even if we're not talking about revolution, they're just very pitiful.
Yes.
Because they don't even think that like the democratic monopoly on power can be broken and replaced with a more progressive bourgeois party like the Greens.
No.
And And what I'm really sick of is you get people like, okay, what we really need to do is we need to infiltrate the Democratic Party and push them to the left. Well, if you're about infiltration, then why are you only infiltrating one party?
Yes, infiltrate both.
Yeah,
And
that's why I don't get.
yeah, I would infiltrate both. Like if you think it's a good idea, make a plan. I'm not gonna say it's a bad idea without hearing it off the coast, but yes, infiltrate both. Or yeah. Anyways, thanks again. We should have this like more often where we pick topics. And we should find a way to call this. And by next week, but the next time we do it, I promise I'll figure out how to get this live streaming.
Yeah, I'll show you some of the stuff I've done. I can also talk with some of the Mango Press people because they do it through Discord, and the way they do it, it works quite well.
Okay.
But yeah, with the OBS stuff, I'll show you. Have you seen some of the live streams that I hosted for Carl?
I've only seen one.
Which one was it?
Was it the
Lyman Stone?
No, it had something to do with
The Invention of China?
Yes.
Bill Hayton?
Yes.
Yeah. I can show you the setup for that, and yeah.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
No problem. It was really nice to meet you, and thanks for having me on here.
Oh no, thank you. And I'll just like edit out some little things and put the graphics in, and I'll stream it as though it's a live stream.
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Have a good day.
You too.